Albus Dumbledore is widely regarded as the most powerful wizard of his time. Some may say Voldemort or even Grindelwald, but in my opinion, Dumbledore had something special that the others didn't. He was truly one of a kind. Or was he? My question today is, was Dumbledore as special as we make him out to be? Does he deserve to be pedestalized to the extent that he is? Or is it possible that someone else could reach or even surpass his level of power? Surely someone has the potential to match him, right? And if so, who? Let's dive into it. Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. When people think of powerful witches or wizards, the common assumption is that these individuals are powerful because they just are. Their strength comes from something innate, and they are simply born with a natural propensity to excel at performing magic. And we witness the same thing with professional athletes in our own world. When someone performs at the highest level, throwing the fastest ball, running the longest distance, lifting the heaviest weight, it's often chalked up to genetics. They're just gifted, people say. But what we don't see is the grit behind the greatness. The years of training, the relentless discipline, and the sacrifices made day after day. And it's this perception that others are simply inherently better, and that this is the primary driver of their success that undermines the resilience of some truly accomplished individuals. Yes, talent might open the door, but at the end of the day, it's their consistency, focus, and resilience that truly elevates someone to greatness. There's even a quote that reflects this: "Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard." So my question is, does this same logic apply to magical ability? Is it the hardest workers that rise to the top? Did Dumbledore simply outwork the competition? Or was it his innate magical power that rose him to the top of the wizarding totem pole? And most importantly, can a witch or wizard, born without any extraordinary gifts, still endeavor to become the most powerful? In a previous video, I discussed 3 reasons why I believe someone like Dumbledore achieved such a seemingly unparalleled level of power. However, today I want to revisit those reasons and dissect whether or not these qualities were truly unique to him, or if they're traits that others could potentially develop as well. The first consideration is intelligence. If we think of Dumbledore as a character, we don't just see him for his magical prowess. He was also wise, highly strategic, and perhaps above all other things, intelligent. Over the course of human history, countless brilliant minds have graced the world, but only a select few have truly stood out. Those whose intellect and achievements left an indelible mark. People like Einstein or Da Vinci, whose theories redefined how we perceive the world around us. And I think that Dumbledore is, in many ways, a wizarding world equivalent. He wasn't just intelligent because he memorized a bunch of incantations, but because he thought differently. He challenged conventional thinking, he asked questions that others didn't, and he understood that magic wasn't just a tool, it was a force intertwined with emotion, intention, and philosophy. He anticipated events before they unfolded. He manipulated pieces on the board long before anyone realized they were playing a game, and his intelligence gave him the ability to understand people and magic at their deepest levels. But as intelligent and undeniably rare as someone like Dumbledore was, we have to ask, was his mind truly once in a lifetime? Or was it simply 1 in a million? 1 in 10 billion? And as impressive as Dumbledore was, I believe the answer is most likely the latter, which crucially does leave the door open for someone else to match or even surpass him in this particular aspect of achieving power. The next consideration is trauma. One commonality that I recognized among powerful wizards and witches is that many of them endured pain and trauma at a young age. Dumbledore lost his father, mother, and sister, and ended up carrying the weight of his family on his shoulders. And Voldemort was abandoned, orphaned, and raised in a cruel, loveless environment during the Great Depression. But instead of breaking them, this suffering forged them. Their pain became a catalyst, and it transformed them from ordinary individuals into something far greater. On a lower level, we even see examples of this in the series. Besides Voldemort, Harry has one of the hardest upbringings in the books, and look at what he was able to accomplish. Pain and suffering are by no means unique to these powerful wizards. Anyone can be dealt a bad hand, especially in childhood when we have the least control over our circumstances. Which means that this contributor to Dumbledore's power, his early hardship, is not exclusive to him. The next consideration is genetics, like we talked about in the beginning. Fortunately for us, J.K. Rowling has spoken extensively about the nature of magic beyond the books, and one of the most important clarifications she's offered is this: magic is a genetic trait. This point is more speculative than some of the others that I'm making, but I'd like to assert the possibility that powerful wizards like Dumbledore simply represent an advanced form of magical evolution. In this regard, it's possible that Dumbledore's body and mind were simply exceptionally attuned to magical energy, able to tap into and harness the magical energy around him in a more efficient manner. And it's this rare physiological advantage that gave him a massive head start on his peers. On a scale of 100, where others started at 0, it's possible that Dumbledore started at 10 or even 20. From an early age, he was already performing magic far beyond what was expected, even before formal training, and this is proven by his time at Hogwarts, as Griselda Marchbanks, the head of the Wizarding Examinations Authority, described his magic as something she had never seen before. There also exists the possibility that some feats of magic are simply impossible without this genetic edge. But just like with his intelligence, it's hard to imagine that Dumbledore is an entirely isolated instance of this. And while he may have been genetically more advanced than most witches and wizards, there's also the possibility that someone could evolve to an even greater extent. One of the last considerations I want to take a look at is time. Dumbledore didn't become who he was overnight. His wisdom and magical prowess came from a lifetime of accumulated knowledge, pain, failure, and refinement. He studied ancient magic. He learned from others, like Nicolas Flamel and Bathilda Bagshot. He questioned everything, including himself. In the end, he lived to be well over 100 years old, and he really used that time. He didn't coast on early talent, he built on it, year after year. And where others may have plateaued, he kept climbing, evolving his perspective. And that's an important point. In the wizarding world, longevity isn't just about living longer. It's about having more time to grow, study, reflect, and master the craft. Which means that, theoretically, any witch or wizard with a long enough lifespan and the right mindset could gradually chip away at that gap in ability. So while Dumbledore's age gave him an undeniable advantage, time is, at least in principle, available to anyone. And in my opinion, these are the 4 cornerstones of magical capability: intelligence, genetics, life experience, and time. In each of these areas, Dumbledore was uniquely positioned. He was the perfect storm. A brilliant mind, gifted with rare magical genetics, shaped by profound personal loss, and granted the time to evolve and refine his abilities over the course of a century. After breaking it all down, it's no wonder he rose to the top. But what's important to recognize is that none of these pillars are entirely out of reach for others. Intelligence can be cultivated. Trauma can be transformed into strength. Time, if used wisely, can become a powerful ally. And even advanced magical genetics, while not universal, do present themselves in unexpected individuals. So while Dumbledore may have been rare, he wasn't impossible. He wasn't divine or untouchable. He was a man who maximized every advantage he had. Greatness in the wizarding world isn't just about what you're born with. It's about how far you're willing to go to fulfill your potential. Bearing all of that in mind, next I want to explore who, from the series, is best suited to achieve the levels of power that Dumbledore did. I haven't fully developed this idea yet, so I'm going to build as I go along. Starting with the most obvious, Voldemort. Now, there are many out there that would argue Voldemort is already right up there with Dumbledore, but in my humble opinion, Voldemort didn't quite make the mark. Voldemort's name alone was enough to strike fear into the hearts of nearly any witch or wizard. But interestingly, Voldemort himself feared Dumbledore. And given Voldemort's arrogance, the fact that he was still able to acknowledge his own fear of Dumbledore tells me that even he knew, deep down, that Dumbledore was a superior wizard. As far as the 4 cornerstones of power mentioned earlier, Voldemort is about as close as we're going to get, at least in the modern era. As far as intelligence is concerned, Voldemort was one of the most brilliant students Hogwarts ever had. But he wasn't just academically gifted, he was innovative, curious, and constantly pushed the boundaries of what magic could do. He kept asking questions, kept experimenting, and wasn't afraid to explore magic that others feared. He created his own spells, he discovered lost magical knowledge, and he not only understood magic, he reshaped it to suit his purposes. Genetically, he wasn't anything to scoff at either. After all, he was a direct descendant of Salazar Slytherin, one of the founders of Hogwarts. As far as life experience, Voldemort's early years were arguably worse than anyone else in the series. Orphaned at birth and raised in Wald's Orphanage during one of the harshest periods in UK history, he grew up in an environment devoid of love, stability, and care. The orphanage system was also underdeveloped and overwhelmed in the post-World War I era, with overcrowding, malnutrition, disease, and neglect being the norm. And if things weren't already bad enough, the Great Depression hit when Tom was just 5, making his formative years the worst of any character in Harry Potter. And lastly, we have time, what Voldemort sought out more than anything. More than power, more than recognition, Voldemort feared death. He saw it not as a natural end, but as the ultimate defeat. And in response to this, he sought to conquer time itself, splitting his soul into Horcruxes in a desperate attempt to achieve immortality. But while he extended his existence, he didn't extend his growth. Unlike Dumbledore, who used his long life to evolve, reflect, and deepen his understanding of magic and humanity, Voldemort remained emotionally stunted and rigid in his thinking. In trying to master time, he failed to use it, and Voldemort ended up dying at 71. Not young, but definitely not old, especially by wizarding standards. Looking at these 4 elements, it becomes clear that, in some ways, Voldemort did have the potential to rival or even surpass Dumbledore. However, he ultimately fell short, not because he lacked the raw materials, but because of how he chose to use them. He died younger than he should have due to his arrogance, and he stifled his own growth by obsessively pursuing immortality at the expense of wisdom and perspective. Next up, we have Severus Snape. Now, Snape may not be the obvious choice when it comes to contenders for Dumbledore's level of power, but I think he deserves serious consideration. While he was never as outwardly impressive as wizards like Dumbledore or Voldemort, the reality is that Snape possessed a depth of magical understanding, emotional complexity, and raw talent that often gets overlooked. Starting with intelligence, I think it's difficult to argue against Snape being brilliant. He excelled academically, but what really sets him apart is his originality. He created his own spells, improved potions, and even rewrote portions of his textbooks. His mind wasn't just sharp, it was inventive. Like Dumbledore and Voldemort, he didn't just learn magic, he transformed it. Genetically, Snape doesn't boast any kind of legendary bloodline. He was a half-blood born to a witch mother and a muggle father. However, magical power is not typically anything to do with one's bloodline. It's not about being a half-blood, pure-blood, or muggle-born. It's more about whether or not we can find examples of other genetically gifted witches or wizards in his genealogy. And as far as we know, his lineage didn't grant him any special advantage. When it comes to life experience, Snape's story is soaked with trauma. He endured all sorts of bullying, isolation, and heartbreak at a young age. He also came from a broken home filled with conflict and neglect. His one source of light, Lily Evans, slipped away, and her loss became the defining tragedy of his life. And lastly, there's time, the only category where I can say Snape truly fell short. Snape was taken from the world at just 38 years old, and in my opinion, this is his biggest shortcoming. Some may disagree with me here, but I think that had he lived longer, had he been given the freedom to explore magic without the burden of secrecy and war, he could have evolved into one of the most powerful wizards of the modern era. In many ways, Snape represents a kind of unfulfilled greatness. He had the intellect, the discipline, the pain, and the raw magical talent. What he lacked was time, and perhaps a mentor who truly believed in him before it was too late. It's also possible that genetically, Snape simply wasn't on the same level as someone like Dumbledore, and that genetics would ultimately be his Achilles heel. But without knowing how the rest of his life might have unfolded, we'll never truly know what he could have become. What do you guys think? Which characters in your minds have the potential to rival the likes of Albus Dumbledore? Let me know down in the comment section below. Also, if you enjoy the content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live.